Oh, this is physical, and this is spiritual. We are the house of Yahusha's Ruach. Oh, what's food got to do with it? Got to do with it? What's food got to do with living Torah? What's food got to do with it? Got to do with it? Why does Yahusha want us to be clean? What's food got to do with it? Got to do with it? What's food but a sweet and savory portion? What's food got to do with it? Got to do with it? The Torah is truth and it should not be broken. Oh, what's food got to do with it? Got to do with it? What's food got to do with living Torah? What's food got to do with it? Got to do with it? Why does Yahusha want us to be clean? What's food got to do with it? Got to do with it? What's food but a sweet and savory portion? What's food got to do with it? Got to do with it? The Torah is truth and it should not be broken.
Welcome to Torah Talk with Lew White and Mark Davidson.
Good morning, how you going?
Good morning. Hey.
It's lovely to see you, brother.
Yeah, it's lovely. You look well.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I didn't know we were dressing up today.
Well, I put on a tie for a little subtle reason.
Yes.
Is that unusual looking for me?
No, that's great, mate. Tie's good.
Well, I used to go to school like this all the time when I was taught by the Jesuits.
Yeah.
What? You were taught by Jesuits?
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, we all were indirectly, because what happened was a lot of people don't know this, but during the Middle Ages, what? Hey, there's somebody here. Remind me to bring that up again.
Don't interrupt you.
Hey, no, something more important just came up.
Wow.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you doing?
Yeah, good.
Well, how's Amy doing?
She's doing alright, yeah. She's feeling alright. She went to a homeopath and she gave her some little pills to put under her tongue and things like that to stop the morning sickness. And there was something else, iron supplements, things like that. She gets low iron, so
Good.
yeah. So she's starting to feel a bit better. I'm encouraging her to come into the salon a bit more, and so she's helping me out there. And it's starting. Small steps.
Tell her to eat a little box of raisins every day. That'll help with her iron too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Raisins are good.
Yeah. Just a few.
And some ginger for her nausea.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Ginger. Fantastic.
Well, it's good to see you.
Yeah, how you going?
Oh, I'm doing just fine. Lou and I've been exercising.
Yeah.
He might not tell you. We go out walking for about 20 minutes a day, and we're both going to get all pumped up and slim and trim. And well, you have a good talk.
Yeah,
Love
thank
you.
you. Yeah, I love you too.
I was talking about the Middle Ages. Yeah. during the Middle Ages, basically, 6th, 7th, 8th through the 15th century.
Can you bring that screen back around a bit?
Oh, like that?
A bit more? About there, yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Yeah.
During the Middle Ages, they call it the Dark Ages as well, because people were illiterate and everybody was running around on muddy roads. That's all they had. They didn't have paved roads, and when they did, it was just a small area. But the Middle Ages, okay, the main event for any city or town was the cathedral. If they had a cathedral, they had a bishop there. And a cathedral is the Latin word cathedra, which means throne, and it meant the throne of a bishop. Well, the bishops were all collectively thinking, hey, these priests are really illiterate. They don't know how to read. They don't know anything. So the beginnings of universities started when they started these things called cathedral schools. And they taught the priesthood at first. And then they started teaching the nobility's children, like the people who would be the future government officials and future clergy. So, the cathedral schools developed into what we know today as seminaries and universities. So, what is in the teachings of those places? Well, whatever was in the cathedral schools was inherited into the seminaries. And then from there it flowed down to the universities, and they controlled them because they infiltrated them, because they were training the people from the very beginning what they were to believe. And that's what this is about. And now it's got us swallowing, literally eating, defiling blighters. Wow. I mean, in other words, the circus fathers, or the church fathers as they call them, were being taught through the cathedral schools and then through the seminaries and through the universities. So now we're taught there's nothing wrong with anything you want to eat. Whatever you want to eat is fine. And they'll take you to a scripture like Mark or something, and they'll say, look, he said it. But it wasn't food that he was describing, He wasn't even saying it, because that was something they inserted into the text. I have a couple of copies of, this is the softcover BYNV, and this is a new one that I only have one of, and it's a sample, is what it is. It's
look at that.
It feels like leather, but it isn't. It's actually polyurethane. Yeah. And it has a white ribbon. This is wonderful. Look at this. It's gold foil stamped.
Yeah.
But I'm only $12,000 short. And that's not that much money. I'm going to try to find out. I've already sold my truck, so I need $12,000. I told you this isn't a come on, but if somebody does have a few shekels, they can send for this and specifically call it this. But they need to help you with what you're doing, because see all these videos.
Oh, we're okay.
Watching the one on the wedding or wedlock. Wedlock. It was just awesome. The coverage that you pulled out of me on the topic of wedlock. Have you seen that lately? It's wonderful.
Yeah, marriage and the dating and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is a. I hope we can cover this today. It's about. It's food for thought. And it's an article that I have a free download on right now. It talks about the eating of unclean animals and what unclean animals are, and we also go into other things too. But the things that people eat are defiling them, and it's actually causing diseases. It isn't just about trichinosis anymore. I mean, we've got lots of diseases, allergies. What's all this allergy stuff? And what's this autism? What does it really cause? What's causing it? Well, do you really believe that you could eat whatever you want in defiance of what Yahuah told us, green plants and select clean animals? Do you really think you can ignore that and then not get cursed? And what kind of blight do you think we're going to receive? Yeah. So we have to wake up and understand why these things are happening.
That's a big topic, isn't it?
Well, it is and it isn't. It's just a matter of understanding it. I mean, the snake in the garden fooled us with this same thing. He said, hey, you know what? Did Yahuah really say this? And you believed it? Well, you can eat this. It's okay. Let me tell you what. Give me a reason, and man, the average human being is there. Even a perfect human being can be deceived. And that's what happened. And today we're getting fooled by the very same trick. All we need is a reason. Oh, it's just that's for those people. It's not for you. Oh, it isn't? What? You're a human being. But if you put defiled matter into your body, let's say an unclean animal, that unclean animal is unclean because partly, as far as we understand, because it ate yucky stuff. It took in decaying matter. I mean, think about a snail or a clam down in there, cleaning the dead stuff out of the sand, and it's made of it. It's toxins. I mean, an oyster, a shrimp, these things are eating this stuff. And then if you eat it yourself, if you eat the animal that ate it, then you're eating the yucky stuff yourself secondhand. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like dumping something out of one garbage can into another garbage can and saying, oh, it's changed. It's changed. Yeah.
Yeah, people don't realize that it actually affects your behavior as well.
Well, neurotoxins, what about your nervous system, your blood? And that's why even a clean animal's blood is not edible, because it has toxins in it. How do you think your urine forms and a lot of the things that go on in the other place? Well, it's transferred around. All the dead and dying and poisons and all the stuff that's getting taken out, they're the garbage men. Your bloodstream is the garbage conveyor. It's a conveyor belt of garbage. And it's putting it through, it filters it, so your kidneys, for example, and your bowels are filtering out the toxins and collecting them and then exhausting them from the body. That's why you have to drink lots of clean water every day to keep your body purged, and then have that activity level that's keeping your body using oxygen to burn this stuff up and get it out of your body through your skin, through your bowels, and through your urine. Those are the exit points for the toxins. And if everybody did that, if they thought about their bowels, their urine, and their sweating, if everybody did that, then the purging would go on. And that's just from eating clean stuff. But when you add to that all this other yucky stuff, like, hey, there's an oyster, or let me have that octopus and that squid, and let me have that rat or that pig. Oh boy, you're loading it in, man, at high levels. So our children are being born toxic because they're made of this stuff. And then we're going, hey, what's wrong with the boy? Well, he's got autism. We don't know what caused it. What do you think's happening? You know, we're disobeying, so we're inheriting the penalty, the consequences of the toxins. But a lot of people won't say this. They don't know it. They don't, well, can you prove it? Scientifically. Well, do you really need that kind of scientific evidence when you know that you are what you eat? Everybody knows that. You know, you eat apples, you eat hamburgers, you eat whatever, fungus. You know, for many years people have said, well, I wonder about mushrooms. Well, mushrooms are actually giant bacteria. They're fungi. You know, now, what did Yahuah give us to eat? Did he give us fungi or fungus or mold? Did he say, yeah, just go out there and find some mold in the shadowy part of that cave and eat that? No, he didn't. He said green plants, the fruit, and the green plants themselves. So automatically we know fungus is not food. So how do you define food? I'd like to find that article here real quick. I think I can go online and do it. It's up online now. Did you see the link?
Yes.
All right. I have to open my browser here. We can go through this real quick. Let me see here.
But I have seen that if you eat too much of stuff with, like you said, toxins in it, it's like going out on the booze all night. It's like going out drinking alcohol all night and then wondering why you get a hangover and why you're angry, and you know, the behaviour is just horrible the next morning. You're filling yourself with intoxicants, really. It changes your behaviour. And since we're all about behaviour, and Yahusha wants us to have the right behaviour, it's so important. People don't look at that. They just look at scripture and other things, but they're not looking at what they put in their mouth. So.
Oh yeah, it really does matter what's going on. I'm trying to figure out how to get this screen to behave. A lot of this stuff, like you say, is really moving around a lot. Anyway, this study on food and what's clean and what's unclean for us to eat, it defines what food is. The food is, I mean, all foods are declared clean. Well, what foods? All the Gentile foods are declared clean? Well, no. He wouldn't have said anything like that. That's not what he said anyway. That was a marginal note that was brought into the text. Some monk wrote that. Anyway, one of the statements that I made in preparation for this was, what we don't know anything about can still kill us. And that's a verse, that's a kind of another interpretation of the verse at Hosea or Yahusha chapter 4, verse 6. Quote, my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. Now that applies to this. And I wanted to bring this up because the tie. Do you know what this is? What is this?
No, I don't know.
It's a napkin. Now, back in the days of Henry VIII, now Henry VIII we think of as the guy that burned William Tyndale at the stake for his translation of the scriptures. Henry VIII would invite nobles and people of the society around him to dinner. And when he did, a lot of them were using their sleeves to wipe their mouth. Well, he got fed up with that. He started giving them napkins, and he instructed that the men put their napkin in their shirt or their whatever, their collar, and the women would lay it on their lap. So the women laid it on their lap, and the men used it up here, and they would wipe their mouth with the napkin. And then they would, after they left the dinner, they would go out into the streets, and they would be wearing this napkin, and everyone knew that they had been in the presence of the king, and that tie or napkin was a symbol of status, and they really liked the attention they got. So naturally, or normally, or it's understandable for them to say, oh, I'm going to start wearing this all the time. I get a lot of attention. So they kept the napkin, and they kept wearing the napkin, and it was a symbol of status. Well, this is external behavior, I don't really need a napkin right now, so I'm just going to put this down. Anyway, nothing artificial. I don't like to wear things like put on hats and make me feel like I'm special. But other people can do that. That's okay. Or put a blanket on. We're not making fun. We're just saying, do you know what you're doing?
Yeah.
But is it sandy and windy out here? Why? What's a blanket for?
That's
why I'm for them.
I'm just wondering if that grey stripe is going to be the same colour as your background.
Oh, yeah, it is grey.
Well, you might have lines through you. That's all right.
Yeah. Anyway, a lot of people will put on externalities, and I just dress nicely. That's all I do, and it's not for my respect for myself. It's for the respect of others. That's why we dress. We put on clothes for the benefit of the people that we're around, but then when we pump it up a little bit more and we start really putting on the Ritz, then we're going a little bit too far, But I'm not criticizing them for that. They just do, But here's the thing. Where were we? Oh yeah, we were talking about this. Being destroyed for a lack of knowledge. Okay, this study is it reminds us of something that happened a long time ago. Our first mistake, human beings' first mistake in the Garden of Eden. And here's 2 reasons why this study pertains to that. The eating of whatever we want. Number 1, it's about eating something that Yahuah told us not to be. He said, don't eat this. Eat this, but don't eat this. And then number 2, it's about doubting what Yahuah said and listening to another's opinion. So that's why this is so reminiscent. We were tricked in the garden with a little doubt and an excuse to eat something. And Today, masquerading messengers of light, who are Shaitan's servants, conform their followers with, they comfort them with soothing words. And they've twisted them from Scripture. Now, the fact that we could fall for the same trick twice is only explained by the fact that the same demon is still here and taking advantage of us, knowing we are easily persuaded by false teachers. In addition to that, it seems apparent that people want to eat what is forbidden, and they do whatever they know to be dangerous. And if we just look at how they abuse their bodies in every imaginable way. Yahuah introduced himself to the first man and woman on the 6th day. Some will say, oh, the woman wasn't yet there. Well, we don't know, but I can't really say one way or the other, but I know that she was there because she was part of Adam. You know what I mean? So the instruction was given to mankind, and it wasn't going to change. He doesn't change the words that go out. If something goes forth from his mouth, those words don't just change willy-nilly and say, well, that's for those people, and then the other people that are somebody else, they don't apply to them. Yes, they do. Because if you read Ecclesiastes chapter 5, it says, what's the end of the matter? To obey Yahuah and keep his commandments. That applies to all mankind. Well, anyway, when he introduced himself to Adam, then as a kind person would do to any other person that they just met, they would offer them food and drink. That's one of the things that he did. So he told him, look around. You can eat anything you like, but just don't eat of that tree. So he said, here's your table. I've spread it before you. And I bet it was awesome too, that stuff. The peaches must have been great. Well, anyway, he was told to, basically he baruched them. And when we say baruch, we mean that we make them even happier and lift them up even higher with joy, and to shower upon them well wishes, or a good path. That's what bless means, baruch. It means to make someone very happy, and to increase in number. Go out there and multiply. So that's kind of, some people say, the first commandment. And his very next statement provided information on their food, which at that time was just involving plants. And these people were perfect. Things that, you can only imagine how beautiful it was. And then everything changed when they were tricked into believing that what Yahuah told them about what not to eat was not a problem. So you see, when we are tricked, all kinds of things bust loose on us, consequences. And that's what we're dealing with still, that same choice that they made. All they had to do was, or he had to do, and she had to do, was say, no, we were forbidden. That's not, and we don't know why, but we do know that we're not to do it. Well, a lot of people aren't going to understand why we can't eat unclean things. But today we're going to talk about that. They're toxic. They're defiled. They're loaded with blight. They eat garbage. They eat yucky stuff. And when they do, you eat it secondhand if you eat them. You're eating it secondhand. It's a horrible thing. People just don't think about it. It's like when you drink chlorinated water. There's no little genie or fairy that's sitting there with a little wand that goes, ding, it's okay now. Well, the stuff is made to kill life. Chlorine will kill indiscriminately. Doesn't matter whether it's a cell you like or a cell you don't like. If it's a germ, it's dead. Well, you're putting death into your body when you drink chlorine. Anyway. Thinking people just don't think, But now, if we're going to ingest poisons and toxins by eating them, then, we deserve the consequences we get, but we should be warned first, But in Luke 12, verse 2, it says, and whatever is concealed shall be revealed, and whatever is hidden shall be made known. And then in Yirmiyahu, or Jeremiah 3:15, it says, I shall give you shepherds according to my heart, and they shall feed you with knowledge and understanding. So we're giving you the knowledge, but we're also giving you the understanding. Why is it that we can't eat unclean animals? Well, a flash came to me that eating pigs is excused by all kinds of pastors and theologians, and yet the same criteria is justified for eating pigs as it would be for eating roaches or spiders or anything. You have to say that, well, if you think that eating roaches is bad because you know what roaches eat, you see them and you go, wait a minute, that's not good. Well, the same criteria can be used for excusing the eating of roaches. So why would pigs be different? It's just that pigs are popular. But we were given plants, and later we were given clean animals for our food, and things that sustain themselves on slime or rotting materials like molds or fungi or bacteria or other toxic animals fall short of being called food. They're not food. They're not called food. They were not given as food. They have no similarity to green plants. See, fungus and mushrooms are not green plants. They have no place in our bodies, and therefore their toxins can damage our bodies. What if allergies and contagious plagues, and Parkinson's disease and Alzheimer's and all manner of other neuropathic disorders, could be traced to ingesting defiled, unclean material? Would that make a difference? Well, I think we're already seeing the effects of it, because when you ask the scientists, they say, we don't know what the cause is. Well, have you thought about what you're eating? Eating blight secondhand is still eating blight. And cancer can result from that. That might be why we have an epidemic. If we eat blight, we will be blighted and abominated. That's a sure thing.
What's blight?
Blight is it's kind of an old English word, really, and it means something that's not to be eaten. It's blight. It can also be disease. If a person is suffering from a blight, it's saying they're suffering from a disease, a pathogen, but it can also apply to a lot of other things. But anyway, I have a picture of Don Knotts doing some kind of hypnotic thing with Andy, breaking the trance that you can't eat dogs and cats. Well, most people wouldn't eat dogs and cats, but some people would. Squirrels, turtles, reptiles, lizards of all sizes, iguanas, they're not food. Can we just eat whatever we choose? Well, if you think about it, if you go to Isaiah, or Yeshayahu, chapter 8, verse 20, this is what it says: to the Torah and to the witness, if they do not speak according to this word, it is because they have no daybreak. Now, the reason that we understand that people are deceived is because of the order of the world. It's arranged in the clergy, the nobility, and then the powerless laity, which means people. So I told you about the cathedral schools, and the article will discuss a little bit about the order of society, and it's still in place. The clergy, the nobility, and the laity. And we've inherited all their patterns, and it's just amazing. But Jesuit prep schools, or one of them that I went to, are now worldwide, and their ideas are heard coming out of the mouths of every pastor. And they use casuistry and equivocation. Now, those are two words you should Google: casuistry and equivocation. If you go to my website, you can get a link to that in the articles. And they explain conflicts to their laity if the laity sees something in Scripture that's different. Because you can't find anything that is in Scripture being done by practicing Christianity. They're not doing it. Well, why don't we keep the Sabbath? Well, these people are worshiping on the day of the sun, and they're eating swine. So who are they obeying? You have to ask yourself that question. You can't just say, well, we can explain this, and then when we're done explaining this, then we'll explain that. Well, that's the casuistry and the equivocation that they go to. They just need an excuse. Stop making excuses and just do what it says in the Word. Do the Word. You know? Isn't that what Jacob said, or James? Now, there's basic principles that we learn from Scripture, and they don't change because Yahuah does not alter the words that have gone forth from his mouth. What he despised in the past, he still despises right now. And when we trust what he tells us, then we can stand on a firm foundation together. Men's teachings are not a foundation to stand on. The prophets, a long time ago, when I was a young Christian, I really don't consider myself, I considered myself a Catholic up until I was 18. And then I departed from that. And then I went on this long search for truth, and I studied science from the age of 18. Well, I had already been studying some science, but all the way through till about 35. And finally I said, these people don't know either. They're just guessing, because no two of them agree. Because they can't get to the facts. They can't get to the foundation. Their feet don't reach down to the bottom of the pool, you know? They're not on the foundation. They're just swimming around in a cesspool of ideas. Well, I gave up. So I turned to the Scriptures, and I opened it up into the middle, and I found on the right side of the page Isaiah, or Yeshayahu, chapter 53. And that did it for me. I said, I've got to read this. This is the truth. Because I felt like the book was talking to me. I said, I've known him all my life, but I have been ignoring him. So then I turned my life over to him, and I was 35 years old. Now, I'm 64 now. Yeah. And I've been diligently searching his word, and I had his name from the very beginning. Because I went to the preface, and I read the preface first. And it said, we took his name out and threw it away, and we put in this device called Lord, which means Baal in Hebrew. And so I went to the library, and I found out his name, Yahuah, and I said, nobody knows this, or very few do. And I said, I've got to plug his name in wherever I see Lord. And so I plugged his name in, and the key unlocked all the knowledge and the understanding. So there was never a moment when I didn't understand what the text was saying. But it went in a flood, you know. But I shared it with other people, and they thought I'd lost my mind. So I started calming down a little bit. You know how you are when you first wake up. But anyway, the prophets were talking, as I read the text, about fire, that Yahuah was going to burn in the last days, the whole earth. And I said, what's this? And the fire is discussed in several places. Kepha talks about it, and the prophets talk about it. Yael talks about it, Joel. And Yeshayahu talks about it, Isaiah. Chapter 66. Well, anyway, these words about fire for disobedience in the end times, it's going to be real fire. Well, listen to this in 2 Peter chapter 3, starting at verse 10. But the day of Yahuah, or the Yom of Yahuah, shall come as a thief in the night, or Lila, in which the Shamayim, that's the heavens, shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements shall melt with intense heat. Now let's see, I have to go over here. And the arets, that's the earth, and the works that are in it shall be burned up. Okay? I have to move this around. Seeing all these are to be destroyed in this way, what kind of people ought you to be in set-apart behavior and reverence? Looking for, and hastening the coming of the Yom of Elohim. Now, the Yom of Elohim is the day of Yahuah, you know, through which the Shamayim shall be destroyed, being set on fire, and the elements melt with intense heat. Now, the end times are here, you know, that's for sure. And I'm going to read another prophet here in just a second. But Now, what we don't know can kill us because my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. And at first we were given these green plants, and then we see all these neuropathic disorders and cancers and just autism, you name it. And the scientists are all going, there's no cure. Well, there's not going to be a cure. But what caused it? Well, the blighting blighters, or the defiling blighters, I think, is what did it. Now, let's read Yeshayahu 66:17. Are you ready for this? No. Yeah, starting at verse 17. Now, this is really interesting. It's going to talk about the fire. And it's also going to talk about pigs and unclean abominations. Now, this is a specific prophecy that describes the Yom, or the day of Yahuah, bringing utter destruction on those who eat unclean animals. And it even talks about snatching them away, which is the rapture, taking the bad people out of the midst of the righteous. For look, Yahuah comes with fire and with his chariots like a whirlwind, to render his displeasure with burning, and his rebuke with flames of fire. For by fire and by his sword Yahuah shall judge all flesh, and the slain of Yahuah shall be many, those who set themselves apart and cleanse themselves in the gardens, following one after one in the midst, who eat the flesh of pigs and abominations and the mouse, are snatched away together, declares Yahuah. Now those being snatched away are the disobedient, who are taken out of the midst of the upright ones. That's the rapture. That's the seizing of the darnel, the weeds. The weeds are the first to be taken out, and then the messengers come and gather the weeds. That's the way it really happens. Now, camels and pigs and many other animals are unclean to us because an animal must have both of these traits. It has to chew the cud and have a split hoof. If you read Uikra or Leviticus chapter 11, you get a breakdown on examples of all these things. It says in there, their flesh you do not eat, and their carcasses, that's their dead bodies, you do not touch. They are unclean to you. Now these you do eat of all that are in the Mayim, the waters. Anyone that has fins and scales in the Mayim, that's the water. In the Yamim, that's the lakes or the rivers, that you do eat, if it has fins and scales. But all that do not have fins and scales in the Yamim and in the rivers, all that move in the Mayim, that's the water, or any living creature which is in the Mayim, they are an abomination to you. They are an abomination to you. He says it twice. Of their flesh you do not eat, and their carcasses you abominate. You don't go near them or touch them or eat them. To an unclean animal, to eat an unclean animal is to eat rotting material secondhand. Let's say it again. If you eat an unclean animal, you're eating rotted material secondhand. Now they're loaded with toxins, all these animals, starfish, mollusks, oysters, shrimp, clams, shellfish. They're the cleaning crew of the sea. They digest rotted material that falls to the sea floor. They ingest potent toxins. And their bodies, their flesh, are made of these poisonous substances. And cooking it doesn't have any effect on their poisons. Toxins, which is the Latin word for poison, are also in many other creatures such as sharks, eels, sea bass, and lobsters. And these eat one another, and this concentrates the poisons as it moves up their food chain. Neurotoxins, those are nerve toxins, things that you get into your body and you start shaking and quivering, and you may even die. They're found in all crustaceans. And this is only the tip of the iceberg, because land animals that are unclean must never be ingested for the same reasons. Dogs, cats, monkeys, squirrels, rabbits, turtles, horses, and all reptiles are not given to us as food. And many of these will eat poop. Oh my. They will. And rabbit, I mean, come on. You shall not eat of their flesh. Now, scientists are stumped as to why so many diseases are becoming epidemic in the human population. Cancers, Alzheimer's, diabetes, arthritis, Parkinson's, all these things. These maladies are largely caused by toxins and GMOs that are in our diet. And as of this writing, as of this discussion, 1 out of every 68 live births of human beings show signs of autism. That's 1 in 68. When I was, in my 20s, 1 in 5,000 people would develop cancer before their death. 1 in 5,000 people. And when somebody said cancer, well, that was 1 in 5,000. Now it's like 1 in 5. Now, blood and fat must not be ingested either because they contain toxins. We're giving you knowledge and we're giving you understanding. Both. See? The life is in the blood and it's prohibited. Even if it's a clean animal, we can't eat it. A lot of times people hear this word, and we're getting around to it pretty late in the discussion, but the Hebrew idea of clean or approved is the word kosher. Kosher is a better pronunciation, but the word kosher means it's appropriate or acceptable. So if somebody sees somebody acting inappropriately, they might say, oh, that's not kosher, because it doesn't seem to be appropriate, and somebody's going to get hurt or somebody's going to be harmed. It's the wrong thing to do. Even if it means somebody's reputation is going to be harmed, you just say, well, that's not kosher. You don't want to say that about that person. Don't even listen to it, But kosher food is what is approved by the word of Yahuah. In other words, Leviticus or Uikra. What is Uikra? Well, Uikra means and he called. Korah means to call. U means and. So that's what the name of the book is because it's the first word. And he called. And Yahuah called. That's what it means. But we call it Leviticus sometimes. In chapter 11, it delineates all of it for you. So we can read that, but you can do that. Now in 1 Timothy, this approved food by the word of Yahuah is discussed. 1 Timothy 4, verse 4. Because every creature of Elohim is good, and none is to be rejected if it is received with thanksgiving, for it is set apart by the word of Elohim and prayer. He's not saying that everything's food. He's saying that which was set apart by the word of Elohim and prayer is clean. You can't just pray over food and say, oh, please don't let this kill me. It's not food if you're eating it if it's unclean. But it has to be approved by the word of Yahuah. That's what this is saying, and yet people use this verse. Have you got a picture of that mouth eating the roach?
Yep, right there.
Oh boy. You mean it's over here?
Yes.
Oh. Yeah. Anyway, this eating pigs is justified by the same criteria.
Well, you look at the difference between a cockroach and a lobster. What's the difference?
I've always thought they were just bigger versions of the same thing.
Yeah.
Lobsters. And anyway, Mark 7. Let's look at Mark 7 in the NIV. It's in parentheses, and many of them, it says, in saying this, JESUS declared all foods clean. Now that was a monk's marginal note that was brought into the text in some translations. But it's not in the Greek. It's just not there. It's not in the Greek because the Greek itself is a translation from the Hebrew. And the Hebrew, of course, Mark wasn't writing his words down in Greek. He was writing them in Hebrew. And then sometime in the next 200 to 300 years, it was translated into Greek. And then, but this verse is not there. He didn't declare anything clean that was unclean. But let's look at that. If something is declared to be food by the word of Yahuah, then it is food. It won't change. It's not going to be not food later. He says this is clean, it's okay. If it's not food, then we can deduce if we have thought, if we have thinking processes, which we do, reasoning, we can deduce that it isn't food if it's not given as food. Now, the NIV footnotes state that Mark wrote the sentence, and then it directs the reader to Acts 10, verses 9 through 16. Now, let's look at Acts 10. Acts 10 was written by Luke, and it was written down in about the early 60s, like 62, 63 the year, and it was spanning a stretching over a period of 30 years. And here's what happened. Kepha, they call him Peter, was seeing 3 sheets in a vision. And these 3 sheets contained reptiles and other unapproved animals. Kepha wondered when he woke up, what does that mean? And then 3 Gentile men had just arrived at the gate asking to speak to him. If you read Acts 11, Kepha explains how he correlated the 3 sheets with these 3 men, and that Yahuah had allowed Gentiles, who were formerly regarded as unclean, repentance to life. It isn't about eating unclean animals. It's about these 3 men being Gentiles. Now, the darnel, or the weeds, can be people who have toxic teachings, and they can poison the wheat and cause a type of drunkenness. So we have to be vigilant. That's what the wheat and the weeds are really talking about. People who haven't been indoctrinated with bad teaching are walking around in the world, and they can make the wheat start believing some of the things they believe, and it makes it intoxicating, because the wheat has to be trained and understand what the reason is. How do we cleanse our path, our walk? In Psalm 119, verse 9. Psalm 119, come on guys, that's, one of our favorite. How would a young man cleanse his path to guard it according to your word? Oh yeah. I have sought you with all my heart. Let me not stray from your commands. I have treasured up your word in my heart, that I might not sin against you. Now that is having an eye of light. That's not searching for darkness and saying, how can I get around this? And looking for loopholes to disobey. Now here's the mistaken contradiction that someone called me about that set me on this whole thing. It was about 2 weeks ago. Someone called me on the phone and they said they were panting. They were freaking out. They were actually thinking that Yahuah's word was conflicted. And I said, let's look at it. Come on, calm down. Well, they thought that they were reading Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 22, and they were seeing something that didn't make sense to them. Now let's read that. Deuteronomy 12:22. Quote, only as the gazelle and the deer are eaten, so you are to eat of it. The unclean and the clean alike eat of it. Now that's not saying that you're to eat unclean things alike with clean things. It's saying that if a person is unclean during the festival. That's what this is the context of. Because see, translations, you have to look at them as interpretations and then look at the environment that the verses are in and the words are in and how they're being used. So in the context of this verse, he's discussing the festivals of Yahuah. Christians haven't been keeping them. But anyway, coming from Christianity, she didn't know that the context was talking about anything. But knowing that this is about a festival, the ordinance or the instructions that we're to be given is that if a person happens to be unclean, then they can eat together with the clean of the gazelle and the deer. So anyway, I straightened her out. She was much better off after that. But it's talking about the uncleanness of the people themselves, not the food. Because a person can become unclean by touching a dead body or touching a dead unclean body of an animal, or having eaten something that's unclean, or any number of things, Now, another commonly misunderstood text is Romans 14, verses 1 through 23. Paul is discussing fasting, not the Sabbath day. A lot of Christians go to Romans 14 and they see Romans 14 seems to be talking about days that are special and days that are not special, and it just matters neither one or the other what a person might think about it. He's not talking about Sabbaths. He's talking about fasting days, because it was the custom during that first century for Pharisees to fast twice a week. And he's discussing that, you know. But anyway, then there's later in the chapter, he's talking about some new believers that are weak in the faith, meaning they don't quite understand everything yet, that they avoid problems by just eating vegetables. So they just avoid eating all meat. And sometimes people would be fasting from meat, but not from vegetables. So you see, it's still about fasting. See, a person will fast from eating meat if they're a Catholic during Lent, but they'll eat fish, you know, and not eat meat, and they think that's a fast, and that's what this context is probably about too. Not that these were Catholics; they weren't. Paul was certainly not a Catholic. He obeyed the Ten Commandments, and he kept the festivals. You know, Noah, they call him Noah. He knew about clean and unclean even before the flood. The animals that he was to take on this big ship were identified as clean and unclean in the directions Yahuah gave him, and he was to take 7 times as many clean animals as he would unclean ones. Anyway, the complete explanation of clean and unclean animals is at Leviticus 11. And most clean animals are herbivores. They just eat clean seeds and fruits and leaves and plants. And unclean animals devour toxic materials and concentrate these as they move up in their food chain. Viruses and parasitic organisms invade the unclean animals, such as pigs. They're a perfect breeding ground for viruses and other parasites. Snails, sharks, rays, octopi, and others accumulate these toxins in their bodies on a regular basis. And eagles, which are vultures, they're a member of the family Accipitridae, which is a family of vultures. And owls and hawks and many other fowls are toxin accumulators. They accumulate toxins because they're scavengers, and they'll eat any decaying material. In fact, if you turn a dog loose in a field, he's going to go for the poop, wherever it is, or the dead animal, dead bird, something rotting, something with maggots on it. The stinkiest thing of all is where the dog's nose is going to take you, you know, because they're loaded with toxins. And if we're rebellious, and we just say, well, we don't care, we don't believe it, and then we get cancer or we get Parkinson's disease or some allergies, we can become so repulsive to Yahuah that he will actually allow our vessel to become inhabited by demonic entities. Okay? So if he will turn you over, you know, unclean spirits. See, we're talking about unclean. Unclean spirits are described by Yahusha himself in Matthew 12. Defilement can be that of the heart. It can be you can have a defiled heart. And your inner lamp, which is your heart, the real you, is what Yahusha is referring to at Matthew 12:29 as the strong man. You are your own strong man inside your tent, your house. And if you're overtaken by some powerful invading entity, a spiritual demon that comes in and just pushes you aside and uses your vessel, then they're probably going to be behaving differently than they're not going to be behaving with love, and they're probably going to be teaching people to eat unclean and to break commandments, things like that. So a lot of the people that we listen to are demonically possessed too. They're actually false messengers teaching through the vessels of unclean people. Because a person is only clean if his path is clean that he walks on. If you're walking on a clean path according to the word of Yahuah, then you are a clean person yourself. But we're sent into the darkness, so we have to be around the unclean. We live in the world, but we're not of the world. So if we're going to be of any good, we have to be around them. I've been criticized because I have in the past been around a lot of unclean people. I wasn't one of them. I was among them, but not of them. Yahusha gave his students power over the unclean spirits. Now, in Matthew 10, you'll see this, and they healed all kinds of diseases that were the result of these catastrophes. So there are unclean spirits, and they produce unclean behavior, and they produce diseases. So if we're not making a connection there, maybe that helps. Now we're also supposed to quarantine when we're considered to be unclean. See, the Levitical priests were given the ability to discern whether a person needed to be quarantined from the population or not, because it can spread quickly in a population if a disease is allowed to make contact with many people. They look at their symptoms and they make a decision about it, and then they knew what to do. If you read Leviticus 14, it talks about that. Leprosy is one of the things discussed in that chapter, and it can be identified in a person or even in a building or an article of clothing or an object. Leprosy is a condition. It covers a wide variety of different contagions. It isn't a specific thing. When a person was leprous, they had to live outside the community, and when someone came near them within earshot, they had to yell out, "Unclean! Unclean!" They had to say it twice. Now, the regulations of uncleanness extend to how a woman needs to be aware of where she sits during her monthly period. So, in general, whatever unclean thing might touch something else that's clean, it also becomes unclean. Now, just for example, let's say that you've got an object, and this object is clean, but this object is not clean. If this object comes in contact with that object, then that object becomes unclean as well. So you have to have, and now the third thing that might be down here is protected. So this would be protected from this other unclean thing. So it's kind of like that. When I pick up a dead animal, what I do is I try to hold a piece of paper or something, and I don't directly touch that, because I touch two things. I'm touching a layer of things so that I can get it into a trash receptacle without touching what it's touching. I don't know, it's kind of complicated. But, you know, people that know the TV series Monk, they understand that. I've always been that way. You know, Monk, the guy that doesn't, he's afraid of everything. He's a germaphobe, and I'm a serious germaphobe. I wash my hands entirely too much. My skin cracks because I'm always washing my hands. But anyway, in general, this goes into the exposing dead bodies too, because, well, let's say if a person is going through her monthly period and she's wearing clothing, then she can just sit on a towel to protect the chair. You know, just put down a towel and leave it there, and she's the only one that sits on that, you know. Now, Yahuah wants us to be aware of disease vectors. That's the path and contact. You know, if something touches something else. A lot of times I'll be in a hospital sometimes because I've been seeing my wife has had some problems, and we've been going to see a lot of doctors. And some of the doctors get it, and some of the doctors don't. But I see them touching something that's not clean, and then they go and touch something that is clean, and they defile that. And I pointed that out to one of the doctors, and they stopped and they thought, and they said, yes, I have just made this thing defiled because I touched it after touching something else. You know, and I remember years ago, I went to the dentist when I was in my 20s, and I've gone several times since then too. But they didn't wear gloves. They were wearing, and I said, "You're going to put your hands in my mouth?" And he did. He says, "Yeah." I said, "Don't you think rubber gloves would be appropriate?" He said, "Oh, I couldn't possibly store enough rubber gloves in here. It would just be a..." I said, "Well, one of these days, the government's going to require you to wear rubber gloves." And that's what we see today. But in general, Yahuah wants us to be aware of these disease vectors and stay away from the bodies of dead, unclean animals and people. And we shouldn't have people laying out exposed when they've died. We should bury them and not gawk at them, I don't know if you all know this, but in a lot of these Catholic seminaries or monasteries, there'll be rooms that are filled with dead bones and skulls of actual monks that have died, and they've boiled their flesh off, and they've written Greek words all over their head, all their skulls. But that's unclean, The prophet Yeshayahu saw a vision of Yahuah sitting on a throne in the temple, and he was completely overtaken by what he saw. He said this in Yeshayahu or Isaiah 6:5. And I said, woe to me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. For my eyes have seen the sovereign, Yahuah Sabaoth, Yahuah of armies. Anyway, the thing of it is, unclean lips are, our mouth is like a spring of water. It's pure, it's undefiled, if what comes out of our heart is pure. If our heart's pure, our lips are going to be pure. But if our hearts are defiled, then these ugly words are going to pour out of our lips. And that means that out of the font of our mouth, we praise Yahuah, and out of the same mouth, we condemn other people and use foul language and so forth. But the psalmist sang about the lips too. In the Psalm 141, verse 3, it says, Yahuah, set a guard for my mouth, and watch over the door of my lips. At Matthew 12:37, Yahusha said, for by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned. That's Matthew 12:37. So clean lips matter. The key to staying clean is to remain in constant contact with Him, the way, the truth, and the life. He's guiding us. And if we abide in His word, that's walk according to His commandments, which includes the clean and the unclean food. I mean, there is no unclean food. It's not food. But eating the clean and avoiding the unclean, that's abiding in His word as well. Then we're truly His students, and we will know the truth, and the truth will set us free from many things. Free from sin, free from the diseases, free from enslavement to other people's teachings, because the one that we obey is the one whose servant that we are. Now, if you're keeping Sunday and you're eating pigs, stop and think, according to Romans 6:16, which one am I obeying? Am I obeying Yahuah, or am I obeying someone else? Who is it that I'm obeying? That's the one I serve. I'm the servant of the one I'm obeying. So your behavior is seen in what you're obeying. How many times do we have to say this? Now, we have to help each other stay clean by serving one another and not condemning each other. If you see somebody making a mistake, you don't condemn them. You say, what does it say in the Word? Let's go to the Word and let the Word cleanse us of our behavior. And then we can get back up. Because we fall down, we get back up, And when we allow Yahusha to come inside, clean things out, then the inside of the cup is clean, and then the outside will be clean too. That means our behavior. But we live in a very toxic environment. Pesticides, hormones, steroids, chlorinated water, heavy metals, fertilizers, processed and genetically modified foods, even decaffeinated coffee and tea, deodorants that we spray on ourselves, sometimes hairspray too. If you inhale it, there could be bad things. Chemical softeners for our clothes, and many other things in the human food chain and the environment are making our bodies collect and hold concentrated levels of toxic material. Our children are literally born toxic, and they're made more toxic by ingesting foul air, improper food, and water loaded with all these other things. And then we wonder, why is it that we have autism and arthritis, Alzheimer's, and cancer? and they're pandemic. Have you ever read the side effects of some of these prescription medications? Whoa, some of them include death. And that might be bad. And if you add inactivity to all this, inactivity, and what did we say earlier? Lots of water, lots of fresh, clean food, activity where you sweat. And I'm only talking about 20 minutes a day going on a brisk walk. You know, if you could do it even 3 days a week, but every day would be better. Get your body sweating to where your pores are pouring out some of these toxins, and your bowels and your urine are the exit points for these toxins. You can clean your body. That's physically. But you have to clean your heart too. That's what this is about too. But if you add to all this inactivity, then we find obesity. I'm sitting in front of this computer far too long every day. But you add obesity, and then oxygen is not being taken in sufficient quantities that would normally burn up and excrete the stuff through your skin and urine and bowels. But the answer is to just get active and use your large muscles. You don't have to worry about focusing on your upper torso at all. If you get your large muscles going, then the rest of the muscles in your body will conform to that, you know, because you're out there doing it, you know. And I'm only talking, Phyllis and I have started to walk 10 minutes in one direction and then come back 10 minutes, and we're out 20 minutes together walking. And we have to stop ourselves from whatever we're doing to force ourselves to take this time to do it. Anyway, you'll be happier and healthier. But there's a verse that I think is really wonderful, and it sums it up. It's in Psalm 24, and it's 3 verses. Psalm 24 says, "Who does go up to the mountain of Yahuah?" Isn't that where we all want to go? Who goes there? All right. And who does stand in his set-apart place? He who has innocent hands and a clean heart, who did not bring his life to nothing, and did not swear deceivingly. He receives a blessing or a baruching from Yahuah, and righteousness from the Elohim of his deliverance. This is the generation of those who seek him, Yaakov, who seek your face. Salah. Remember Salah? Salah means this is very important, you know. But that's basically the elements of the article, and it's some food for thought. What are you going to call this?
I like food for thought.
You like it? Food for thought?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's great. Because we've been through all the things with mentioning kosher and all that sort of thing, which is important, but people have heard that word a lot. No, I like food for thought. It's great.
Yeah, it gives you knowledge, but it also gives you understanding so that you can act on it with motivation, and you don't have to go, you know, just blindly following it, think that there's some aura that I don't know. It's just how people are when they're in religion. They stop. They don't really stop and think about reality. You know? But Yahuah loves us, and he shows us all the time in subtle ways, sometimes huge ways, and then we ignore it. Some of these huge things that he does for us, and we don't even notice it, you know. And all we have to do is just decide what we're going to do, make a plan, and then follow his lead, and then do what he says in the Word. Because it says be doers of the Word, and not hearers only. And what word is he talking about, you know?
The main thing that struck me going through all that is the word clean. Clean and unclean. So important. It's not. We're not just having a thing about food. It's our bodies are so complex and on many levels. And are we clean? What we say, what we think, what comes out of our heart, comes out of our mouth. What we put in our mouth. What are we defiling ourselves? That's really going through all that with you. I've seen that the scripture, the Torah, is always just trying to keep us clean. He's just trying to keep us clean and obedient. And if you do what I say, you'll be protected. Stay in the zone of the Torah, stay in the Torah zone, do what the Torah says, and you're safe. You're protected. Be obedient. You don't have to worry about the plagues. You don't have to worry about the diseases. I'll bless you. I'll protect you. So that's made me more aware now of myself, my vessel, my home, the people in it. As the guardian of the home, I just think, okay, are there things unclean? Really important. Cleanliness, clean and unclean. Yeah,
you can use a physical napkin. That's why I brought the tie out. When I was wearing the tie, but this is not. There's a history behind the tie. It's the napkin. The Henry VIII thing. But we need to have our vessel cleaned on the inside, like you were saying, first, and then the outside will be clean, also. People don't get it. They don't get it because they're not taught to obey. You go to a Christian assembly under a steeple, and you have all these crosses all over the place, and you don't even really know that much about what history is. You're taught what it means secondhand from somebody that supposedly knows, but even they know the truth. They know that steeple comes from Babylon. I talked to one of them one time. I said, "What's going on with that?" They said, "Well, they wouldn't know it was a church if it wasn't there. But we know what it is. They do know what it is." Well, this is uncleanness, and you're going to the people whose lips ought to be, giving you knowledge and understanding, but instead you're paying them tithing. That is, they don't teach the Torah, but you tithe to them. Well, what's that about? I don't know if they can get away with that. Well, we don't have to obey the law. Well, I don't have to tithe? Oh, no, hold it. I think I spoke too soon. Which is more important, obeying Yahuwah's commandments or supporting these guys that are alive to? What's that?
That's a flock of birds going over. Yeah, it's about quarter past 7 in the morning. A big flock of birds went across.
Big geese, or a big flock of geese?
Birds, I think. Yeah. With the cleanliness too, I think it's all about getting into order. That's what I've been seeing the last couple of weeks. We're always throwing our hands up in the air asking Yahusha, what should I do here? What should I do there? Teach me your way. What's your will? He's already given us all that instruction. And because we've come out of cosmic religions that are always waiting for some, cosmic weird experience, it's not like that. It's all written in the Torah. And I was saying to the boys the other day, Yahusha wants us to have everything in order. Like he wants us to keep everything clean, keep everything tidy, keep everything in order. I said, do you ever wake up in the morning and the sun's not there? What if he just decided to change his mind and the sun doesn't come up? You got to live the whole day in pitch black. There'll be one day when that happens, but I'm saying he is in order. Everything, the sun rises and sets, it's never stopped. He wants us in order. So that's what I'm learning. I've been taking over slowly the family finances and the business and everything because, Amy's been pregnant and having a hard time, so I'm taking a lot of the stuff off her, and I'm finding it so sobering. It's like waking up from a dream, and it's so exciting to see where you're at, what you got to pay. Oh, guess what? I just paid this and we're free of that. Great. And you just go through the list, and Yahusha's just showing me a different thing now. And it's kind of talking about being clean and unclean. Have everything in order. If you're not sure what to do in your life, or you're waiting for the next instruction from Yahusha, just look around your room. Just look around your room. Clean up, he'll tell you, that's messy, clean it up. That's dirty, get rid of that. That's got stains on it, scrub that. It's not some real, it is a deep experience, but a lot of people are thinking way too spiritually. Yahusha is very practical. He's very, very practical. You're walking down the street, he might tell you to pick something up. I didn't put it there. pick it up. You know, like he's very. That's what I'm starting to see, and what you said today with the clean and unclean just kicks the point home. It's so important to have everything in order, so that when he does move and when he does come into our life, and maybe a new person comes along, we've got everything organised. Everything is flowing and working, and our families are behaving the right way. So important.
Oh yeah. Do you? I was wondering. Yeah, you're in another day than I am in. I think it's already tomorrow for you.
Yeah.
In other words, see, I'm so far behind that I'm in yesterday.
You're still on Sabbath.
Yeah.
I'm in Sunday morning now.
Yeah. Right. See. So you're already in tomorrow. And being a man of tomorrow, I was going to ask you. Do you know if you have ants in Australia?
Oh, lots of ants. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't have clean environment, the ants will come.
Just hang on a second. Something's going on out there. Another flock of birds.
They're probably kosher.
Yeah. Say that again about the
I
ants.
said, if your children hear this, if you leave a messy table or a messy floor where food has been eaten, the ants will come.
Yes.
Yes, they will. And they will bring their friends, and they will set up a camp. Yeah, they'll have a camp, and they'll have flags and little tents, and they'll all be around, and it'll be like an army. Yeah. Then the spiders will come.
To get the ants.
Because they go, hey, look. And then other things will come, and more things will come. You know, it's just an unending sea of defiling blighters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
But I'm glad that this has awakened you in some areas.
Yes,
You know, because it does apply to some of the other things too. But it's all credit to Yahusha. I mean, he's the one that awakens. He shows us things in his word. You know, he just brings it up and he goes, you know, that kind of relates to this other thing, and it sure does. Yeah, and it's spiritual, but it's physical too. You know, that's what he was always about. He was about connecting the tangible with the abstract. And say, do you get this? You know, you're not real good with abstractions, are you? Well, I don't always use abstractions, but when I do, I like to use literal examples. That sounds like the Dos Equis man, I guess. You know, you all have that commercial down there?
I don't think I've seen that one.
Being an Australian, I thought maybe you had all the beer commercials. You know, because you all have the largest beer consumption in the whole planet.
I've heard.
Yeah,
I have one occasionally.
I have to send a picture of myself holding a beer.
Yeah.
That would be. Oh, they'll really hate me for that. But,
yeah.
Yeah.
They'll let you probably move to Australia more quickly if you're holding a beer.
Oh yeah, maybe. I had a beer last night. A beer, you know, and it was just wonderful. It was amazing.
Fantastic.
Well,
yeah, well, that's been an amazing study, brother. Thank you for putting that together. Wonderful.
It's fun. And
it's more
what? There's that. I was getting ready for the next one, and I was thinking that it was going to be. It might be boring for some people, but I haven't ever done an article on syncretism. But I was thinking about that, or possibly was the Nazarene writings, were they written down in Greek or were they written down in Hebrew? And I'd like to go through some of that. Do you think that would be
that'd be amazing. Yeah.
Some people might find it boring, but I'll try to make it interesting if I can, and just quickly run through it and find the evidence and see if we could do it, because they are holding things back from us quite a bit. Because the Dead Sea Scrolls, they found a written document from the 1st century in the Dead Sea Scrolls in Cave 1, I believe it was, of the Gospel of Matthew in Hebrew, okay, from the 1st century. So I think that's just an interesting study, and we'll go through that and try to not get uptight about it, because everybody's Greek mind is thinking Greek and so much. But I like to get them to think more Hebraically. Like what is the Hebrew really talking about? But
I think explaining where you come to on certain words, particularly in the New Besorah, BYNV, I think how you come to certain words from the Greek, from the Hebrew, coming to those understandings, I think that's always going to be interesting, because that's the bedrock of our belief. That's our text. So.
Oh, did you ever get the new shipment of BYNV?
No, not yet. Not yet.
Okay, there's several copies coming, and this was, of course, the first copy. The first edition looked like this. It's kind of thick. And the second edition, which is actually, this isn't exactly it, because the cover has some happy little things on the side. It's a blacker cover, and it's a little different, actually. And then this is more. This is phase 3, where we want to offer somebody this. Almost, it feels like leather exactly, and it's got a flexible cover, and it's got a Smith sewn or Smythe sewn binding ribbon, and it's gold foil embossed.
It's stunning. I love that.
It's really interesting.
Very cool.
This is what the thing we hope to have in the next 6 months or so, I guess, because it's going to cost me $12,000 to get these made, and I don't know. But anyway, I wish people would send support for you primarily, because of the
for the Besorahs.
Well, that would be okay, but if they could help, just a little each month would be great, or occasionally. But we're not, out there begging money all the time, but it doesn't come free. I mean, I have to buy different equipment. You do too. You had that computer problem, and someone gifted me this new camera. Yeah.
Isn't that lovely? Yeah.
Isn't it?
It's been staying. 99% of the time you're in focus now. It's great.
Yeah. I don't have a mirror here to show you what your camera looks like. It's just a little gizmo, a little flat thing.
Yeah.
But,
fantastic.
Yeah, that was a fun study to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. We covered unclean spirits, unclean words, unclean lips.
How our behaviour, people, like if you took it physically and you look at our behaviour, which is generally most of the fulfillment of Scripture is how we behave. Your behaviour, people, if they were leprous or whatever, they had to be put out of the camp. They had to be, it's like contagious, So our behaviour set us apart. It's that was interesting to me.
Well, the Lashon Hara, a lot of people know what that is, the evil tongue. Yeah. When people slander one another or tear down leaders, teachers, or other people for things that they just hear about them and juicy little secrets that they think they know, well, that's gangrene. That's a thing. And you feel it. You can just feel the uncleanness. There's YouTube videos about me. It just toxic. You can just feel the spiritual decay that's flowing from it. And it's not coming from me. It's coming from the spirit of the person that's behind the doing of the act. Because whatever they see me doing is, what am I doing? Playing with a mask? I'm making fun of it is what I'm doing. See, it's all taken out of context. That's the way things are done. And when you talk about somebody and you don't know all the facts, you should go to them personally first. Matthew 18. You go to them and say, I heard this about you, and I don't know if it's really true or not. Well, you shouldn't even ask that question, really, but if you do, because you're judging them in a way, but you should go to them and say, I saw you eating pigs. Well, if you see me eating pigs, then you got something on me. If you see me teaching something that's not true, then you've got something on me. But don't show somebody me holding a mask and saying, "We got him, aha!" You know.
Yeah. You got nothing.
Pardon?
You got nothing. You're walking around now holding something that's not there. You got nothing.
Kind of, yeah. It's I'm not. I pray for those people. I know that that's not something's wrong, you know. But I hope they get straightened out. That's all, you know. Well, I'm glad to hear about Amy being better. That's really really good.
She's getting a bit more balanced, and I'm bringing her into the salon, so it's all happening because it's another mind in the salon, another set of hands, another just having someone else there, offering a few more different services in the salon. It's good getting her out and about.
And not only that, but when she does give birth to your sixth child, you a lot of times there's various degrees of postpartum depression, where the birth mother gives birth to some child and then has this serious depression afterward, and it can last for weeks, and sometimes it can be really devastating to the person, you know, that just paralyzes them, you know, they can't operate, you know. I hope she goes through a smooth transition. You know, have you ever seen that in her before, or
not the aftermath? It's generally more the pregnancy. Yeah.
But I'm sorry she's been sick and feeling so bad. But
loves childbirth, hates pregnancy. Yeah. Kind of weird to me, but anyway. Yeah.
That reminds me of something that happened in the Garden of Eden too. That was related to eating something they shouldn't have.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's been wonderful catching up, brother.
Yep, same here, man.
Let me know how your new studies go, and maybe we'll get together next week or maybe the week after, whenever you're ready.
Whenever it's ready. Yeah. Okay.
Enjoy the rest of your Sabbath, mate. Love you.
You too. We love you. Okay.
Yeah. See you later.
They keep repeating these things, saying, Lord is your name, and so they shun you. Substitution ain't the way. Gotta live in Torah, Torah, Torah. Gotta live in Torah zone. Usher in the latter rain. So the world's gonna know your name. You're making love to demons in the synagogue tonight. I listen to lies, biding my time, drinking more wine. After 2730 years, I am free to know who you are. This lost sheep has come to his senses. The awakening brought me this far. 'Cause I am falling deeper in love with you.
He was pierced for our transgression, bruised for our iniquity. The punishment that brought our peace was upon him, and by his stripes we are healed. Through his blood we have been sealed. The hand that passed us over crushed our King. The perfect offering. You are.
You're the hope that I cling
the
to.
hope that I cling to.
You mean to me.
You mean more than this world.
More than this
to
world.
me.
Yes, you are.
I wouldn't trade you.
I would not
for
trade you. Silver or gold. I wouldn't trade you.
We overcome guides and watchmen of Torah. We are olive trees with a word from Yahusha. We're the scattered prodigals, the house of Ephraim. Name of you, Yahushua. Take us to that city, Shofars
I saw my teacher, his name, and so much in his Torah. He wrote them in my heart and then made me his servant.